Throughout history, power has always been displayed and described as if it were in the hands of kings and emperors. Was this really the case? Even though it looked like this, the real power behind the curtain was something else. A power that ruled not with sword, cannon, or gun, but with a pen, or more precisely, with a debt ledger. A power that made civilizations kneel. Money. The Romans with silver, the Ottoman Empire with gold, showed that money was not only worthless metal or paper, but also a tool that directed people, wars, and even beliefs, which are the greatest secret. Contrary to what is known, the story of money did not begin with gold or coins. The point where it truly began was with belief. When people believed that something was a valuable asset or object, that thing became money over time. A piece of metal, a pouch of salt or metals, a promise written on a note. All are different faces of the same expression and existence. That is why money, throughout human history, has been not only the most powerful weapon, its most dangerous charm was its elegant deception. When we examine medieval Europe, people of that period measured wealth by the gold they earned. Merchants, while crossing long and arduous roads, could not carry hundreds or thousands of kilograms of weight with them as we do today. Because transportation and carrying were done on living creatures, and these had limits to what they could carry and endure, their earnings were little. However, there were great risks of robbers, pirates, wars, disease, loss, and disappearing. It did not take long for them to understand that their biggest need was security, and at that moment, trust appeared on the stage. Merchants began to entrust valuable metals like gold and silver to craftsmen called goldsmiths, and they would give the owners a small piece of paper. On it was written, "In exchange for this paper document, you have the right to receive this amount of gold or silver." Over time, people realized this. They actually did not need to carry that gold from one place to another in the face of very high risks. That paper was already taking the place of the gold. In a sense, that piece of paper became the representation of the value of gold. And here, instead of what was previously done through barter or carrying but was extremely risky and laborious, something comfortable and less risky was needed. Thanks to this search, the greatest idea in human history was born: money. However, this should be underlined in bold letters. Money is something born not from wealth, but from the feeling of trust. What small idea could the goldsmiths have found that could change the direction of the world forever? Goldsmiths were indeed very good in their work and earnings, because they meant trust. But after a while, they also noticed something strange and different. What they noticed was that no one was asking for or taking back their gold at the same time. To explain, due to trade and their urgent work, they held, for example, the gold of 100 customers, or the papers representing it. But at most, only a few of those doing business with them would come at the same time to withdraw their gold. This meant that most of the gold they had stayed in the vault untouched. And at that moment, an idea came to their minds that would benefit them. They found this themselves. If this much gold is not being used, why should it just sit there doing nothing? Why don't we lend a bit more of it? And the idea came out that in return for the loan we give, we receive more back. This idea changed the direction of world history. They printed 200 receipts for the 100 gold coins they held. Half of those receipts were backed by real gold, while the other half were actually based on gold that didn't exist at all. In other words, they represented a value that wasn't real. But no one noticed or questioned it, because everyone was using those receipts to trade with each other. And thus, the first virtual money, the first value created out of thin air, was born. This is also how the cryptocurrencies in today's digital world work. No one truly knows or sees the actual asset behind them. Or even if they know, they choose not to see it. But since everyone can buy, trade, or exchange with them, everyone supposedly trusts them. Anyway, let's return to our topic. Wealth seemed to multiply instantly, but what actually increased were just pieces of paper, not real wealth. Real value was still the same. It wasn't growing. From that day on, the nature of money evolved and quietly changed over time. By the year 1694, the government ruling England had taken on debts to cover its expenses. It was drowning in debt. Long, unwinnable wars had emptied the treasury, and the people were poor and exhausted. The solution they found was simple, but extremely dangerous. What was this dangerous solution, and how did it lay the foundation of the modern banking system? How was it done? To do this, the government established the Bank of England. The government obtained the money it wanted from this bank. The money the bank gave to the government was actually based on the taxes the public would pay in the future. Because one iron rule of physics says, nothing can be created from nothing, and nothing can be destroyed. So, the state pledged the country's future before that future even arrived. They were able to borrow money that didn't exist. This dangerous model worked because money was coming in somehow and people were able to continue their trade. This solution model eventually spread across the rest of Europe as well. This is how the foundation of modern banking was laid, distributing money that doesn't actually exist in the vault by treating it as a promise. Today, the numbers you see on your screen are the equivalent of those old promises. What you call a deposit account is not really your money. It is a promise the bank makes to you. And the backing for that promise usually does not exist. Just like the goldsmiths did. No one ever withdraws all their money at the same time, but banks promise people far more value than they actually hold. If you imagine a scenario where everyone withdraws their money at once, out of 100 people, only 10 could withdraw the money in their accounts. The remaining 90 would not be able to, because banks have never had that much money on hand. Let's return to our point. Even so, the system functions. That is why money still flows. But it depends on one invisible condition: faith. Humanity no longer believes in gold. It now believes in digital numbers and cryptocurrencies. And history has shown us repeatedly, the beginning of a civilization's end often comes when that belief is shaken. Once upon a time, gold shining in the vault was the symbol of wealth. Today, it's just digital numbers glowing on a screen. So now the silent question must be asked. In this game, who is truly rich and who is simply dreaming? Perhaps wealth isn't in piles of money at all. Maybe it lies in the skilled hands of those who can create real value. How does the system developed by those old goldsmiths function in modern banking? What does it mean in today's United States? And today, every country's economy operates on the same math the goldsmiths discovered, making the non-existent appear as if it exists. In the modern era, this system is called fractional reserve banking. You deposit $100 in a bank, but the bank keeps only a small portion of it. It lends the rest to someone else. That person spends it, deposits it in another bank, and the cycle continues. In the end, your $100 circulates in the economy as $1,000. Yet there are still only $10 in the vault. Meaning, money isn't increasing. Debt is multiplying itself. In earlier times, governments required banks to maintain a 10% reserve, meaning out of every 100 units of money, 10 had to remain in the bank as a guarantee, a small cushion against unexpected risk. But especially in today's United States, the reserve requirement is zero. This means the bank is not required to keep even a single dollar of your deposit. So in the event of a crisis, there is no safety cushion at all. In other words, money is no longer created by deposit backing, but by debt contracts. Everything produced or created now is based on borrowing. A simple example, a mortgage loan for a house is simply a credit, a debt signature. Banks don't take money out of a vault. They type it on a keyboard. With one keystroke, new money is born, based not on your signature alone, but on a promise to repay. And the system stays alive as long as those promises continue. Isn't this a fragile and problematic system? There is indeed an imbalance and fragility here. Every new dollar is born from someone's debt. And when interest is added to that debt, the total debt in the system naturally becomes greater than the total amount of money. Something is being created out of something that doesn't exist. What the system does is essentially this. Like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat that actually never lived in that hat and never existed there. Even if everyone knows there is no rabbit inside, the quick hand movement and the momentary illusion give them excitement, and no one says a word. They just watch the show, just like here. In short, even mathematics shows this wrong and fragile structure, and at the end of the day, it makes total repayment impossible. Someone, somewhere, always has to remain in debt, and this is the invisible, troublesome, yet magical engine of the modern economy. As long as debt continues, money exists. If debt ends, money disappears. The most ironic part of the system is this. If everyone could somehow pay all their debts at the same time, the world economy would stop within a few hours, because if there is no debt, there is no money, because the system is built on debt. Throughout history to the present day, those who understood this truth became the ones who controlled the system. The masses, however, are still working to make money, which really means working to pay debts. And at the moment they think they have earned money, they are actually just taking over someone else's debt. The game that began with the goldsmith's gold and coins is now played on a digital screen in the modern era. But the rules have been the same for centuries, and history teaches us this. This game ends when people stop believing. Within the illusion of false trust created by humankind, where do the state, the bank, and the people stand? Trust, the most expensive word in human history. Empires and states were built with it. Civilizations vanished without it. And what we call money is actually just a story of trust institutionalized by a structure. For centuries, there was an unseen agreement between banks, merchants, rulers, and the people. To summarize this agreement in the simplest way, it was this. I believe this paper has value because you believe it too. Money worked like that. A chain of belief connected billions of people to one another for centuries. This trust and belief first existed only among people, but over time it was built between institutions as well. When the state failed to pay or delayed its debt, it leaned on the banks. When banks reached the brink of collapse because they could not bear it, the state stepped in to supposedly save them. And the people had no choice but to believe in one of the two main characters of this game. This is how the invisible three-actor system of the modern economy was formed: state, bank, people. The most fragile and most harmed of this triangle is the people who make up the masses, because the system works with their belief. But the belief they trust is not under their control. It is in the hands of elites who seek to control the people. In the 1929 crisis, millions of Americans ran to the banks in the morning and saw that there was no money in the vaults. Thousands of banks collapsed and hundreds of thousands of people lost their dreams, their savings, their accumulated wealth, their future. In short, everything, in one night. There are many similar events in history, but governments needed to solve the problem in the scenario they preferred. States found a solution to this problem: central banks. Their role appeared simple, to provide stability, but what they actually did was thicken the mask of confidence of the system, creating a false trust by hiding the illusion. The reason was that states no longer had enough money or gold behind the money to show real trust. There was only the promise of the state, and that became a new kind of belief. This belief lasted until the end of the 20th century, until 2008. Banks within a system of borrowing without backing destroyed trillions of dollars of loans they had created out of thin air. Homes changed hands, companies went bankrupt, people became hungry and unemployed. But the two big banks were saved, and the ones who suffered the consequences were the millions of people. Because if the banks collapsed, it meant the collapse of the people's trust. So the state did this. It used the people's money to save the banks it owned. The banks then continued the same system to sell that trust again. There is an old tale, the tale of Robin Hood. In that story, the oppressed were the people, and the evil rulers and elites were punished. But in the real world, the opposite happened. The hero of the tale, the state, acted to save the banking system it created and controlled. A silent question falls into the mind. Are these rescues for the people, or for the continuation of the system? History has already given us the answer long ago. The cost of collapse and crises is always paid by the people. After every major collapse, a new rule is introduced that is simple in essence, but complex on the surface. In the 1930s, the gold standard was removed. In 1971, the dollar's link to gold ended. After 2008, the Basel Agreements came. All of these steps were new trust formulas. Basel is the work of a group of technocrats gathered in Switzerland. They are not elected, yet they direct the world economy. Who are they? They determine how much risk banks can take, how much debt they can create. Do you really think every country can print its own money however it wants? If you believe that, you are in a great illusion. Now, those who print money are not only central banks, nor can they decide freely. There is a table that everyone knows but cannot see, a table that draws the limits of money creation. And they adjust not the value of money, but the dosage of trust. Today, banks create money not from deposits, not from something that already exists, but from credit created by the debt system. When a bank wants to give a loan, it does not open the vault and hand out existing money. It types a few numbers into a computer. At that moment, new money is born. And there is only one guarantee behind this money: your debt, my debt. The bank believes in your future, that you can repay. The system believes in the bank. The state believes the system will continue. Trust is woven layer by layer, with everyone and everything connected to one another. But if even one link of this chain breaks, and sooner or later it always breaks, the entire economy turns to dust overnight. Crises and collapses begin. History has shown this hundreds of times. Golden ages, money crises, debt explosions, the fall of empires and kingdoms. Their common point was always the same. Even though the hand or needle that popped the balloon was different, the real issue was the lack of belief and trust, the lack of money. As long as belief survived within the system, prosperity existed. When doubt entered, collapse began. In the past, at least, there was a small amount of real, tangible backing. Today, money in the world is more abstract than ever. There is no gold in the vault, no reserve in the account, but digital numbers exist. And the only foundation of these numbers is still the words of states, all expressing the same thing, the same word, trust. That is why governments and banks will do whatever it takes to keep belief alive. Bailouts, incentives, interest rate games, all serve one single purpose: keeping trust alive. But now we have seen what is what and what is not. This trust is not a truth. It is an illusion, a mirage. Throughout history, money represented power. But until now, no one asked this question. Since when has power depended on digital numbers written on a screen? This question helps us see the truth. Money began as something solid like gold, but evolved into something abstract and became humanity's dependency. If we remember, the gold in the goldsmith's vault was once real. Then came metal coins, then paper, then bank accounts, and now digital codes. Realize it now. With each step, money became more invisible, more abstract, further from something tangible. And as it became more invisible, it tied human beings, you, more tightly to itself. Now, the more you work every passing day, the more wealthy you seem, but the system grows stronger. And you don't notice it, because every salary, every loan, every credit card statement is a link in a new chain of debt. What they market to you as financial comfort and ease is actually the modernized form of debt. The more you spend, the more valuable you are considered. The more you earn, the more tax you pay. And the more you borrow, the more the system binds itself to you and survives thanks to you. Stop and think for a moment. If everyone paid off their debt on the same day, what would happen? Let's answer immediately. The world economy would freeze and collapse within a few hours, because the system depends on you staying in debt. Your debt is what creates their wealth. That is why no one really wants you to realize this and free yourself. History teaches us one more thing. Real wealth has never been inside money, because money is an illusion created by humans to deceive others. In ancient times, the wealthy were landowners. During the Industrial Revolution, they owned machines. Today, the wealthy are the ones who own knowledge. What makes wealth permanent is not what you hold, but the value you produce. Money loses its value one day or disappears, but as long as the ability to produce remains, wealth continues. Remember the fall of Rome. The treasury was full, but belief was gone. In the late Ottoman period, silver flow continued, but production stopped because people lived in abundance. And today, trillions are being printed everywhere in the world. Real wealth is no longer beyond a digital zero. It is hidden in a skill you have, in the abundance of a piece of land, or in a solution that solves people's problems and helps them, because those solutions come before money. And money always follows solutions. At this point, you have learned how money evolved through history and what its reality is. Now you can choose to stand outside this story. This is not rejecting the system. It is playing by its rules and drawing your own path. True freedom and wealth are not in rejecting money or the system's impositions, but in turning it into a tool you use and benefit from for yourself. If you liked it or found it helpful, you can subscribe, like, or share. The choice is yours. See you in the next video.